The most expensive mistake you're making right now isn't a bad investment. It's not skipping contributions or overspending on takeout. The thing silently eroding your financial future is something no one will say to your face. You are addicted to the feeling of doing something. And that addiction, that need to act, to chase, to react, costs most people more than 7 figures by the time they finally understand it. You've consumed the content. You know what a brokerage account is. You understand compound interest, index funds, tax-advantaged accounts, the basics of portfolio management. The information was never the problem. But here's what no financial educator will say out loud: wealth building is boring. Genuinely, profoundly, almost unbearably boring. And that boredom is the exact thing killing your financial future before it ever gets a chance to start. There is one discipline, and I'm not talking about waking up at 5 a.m. or tracking every purchase into a spreadsheet, that separates the people quietly building generational wealth from the people endlessly consuming content about it. Nothing to do with income, nothing to do with intelligence. The only consistent variable separating those two groups is their capacity to tolerate boredom. And if you stay until the end, I'm going to walk you through a 3-step system, what I call the discipline blueprint, designed so that even the laziest version of you cannot sabotage your future self's financial trajectory. But to understand why that system works, you first need to understand exactly why you're losing the war right now. Here's the inversion that changes everything. The middle class seeks excitement in spending and safety in their career. The wealthy do the exact opposite. They seek boredom in their investment strategy, index funds, dividend reinvestment, tax-advantaged accounts that sit quietly for decades, and they seek calculated risk in how they grow their income. That inversion seems like a small philosophical difference. It is not. That inversion is the entire game. Think about the last financial decision you made. Were you drawn toward the exciting option, the trending asset, the hot sector, the opportunity that felt like it couldn't wait? Or were you drawn toward the boring option, the one that returns 7 to 9% annually, generates no interesting stories, and demands nothing from you except patience? If you're honest, you already know the answer, and so does your portfolio. Here's why this matters more than any investment tip you'll ever come across. Your brain was not wired for wealth, it was wired for survival. And in survival mode, boredom registers as a threat. When a portfolio just sits there, slowly growing, reinvesting dividends, compounding in the background without drama, your nervous system doesn't feel relief. It feels alarm. It sends one message: do something, move, react, fix it. That urge is not wisdom. That is your evolutionary programming confusing stillness with stagnation. The wealthy have trained, through repetition, through loss, through financial discipline built over years, to feel the opposite. To them, a boring investment is a functioning one, a signal the system is working exactly as designed. The most successful long-term investors in American financial history didn't win because they were smarter than the market. They won because they were more patient than every other person who panicked and sold. And here's the part that cuts deepest. That patience isn't a personality trait you either have or don't. It is a muscle. Capacity you build through small repeated acts of financial restraint, or systematically destroy through small repeated acts of impulsive financial behavior. Every time you sell during a downturn, every time you cash out early, every time you choose excitement over discipline, you are running a rep in the wrong direction. This is where the first real shift happens. Delayed gratification in personal finance is not a mindset change. It's a practice behavior that degrades when not used, like any muscle left idle long enough. And modern life is a precision machine for degrading it. One-click purchasing, same-day delivery, infinite content designed to reward every micro-impulse within seconds. Everything about modern life is training your brain to be worse at waiting. Which means without intentional financial discipline systems running in the background, your capacity to build wealth is quietly shrinking every single year. The math on this is brutal. A single decision to hold through a 30% market correction, instead of panic selling, can represent $200,000 or more in a long-term portfolio over a 25-year horizon. Not because holding was genius, because selling under fear is the default reflex that costs ordinary investors their 7-figure futures. Now here's where it gets specific and uncomfortable, because there's a category of expense, one that even financially disciplined people consistently get wrong, that leaks money invisibly and compounds into a lifetime loss most people never calculate. I'll name it in a moment. But first, the behavioral protocol that will change your financial decisions immediately if you apply it. For any purchase over $100, you wait 24 hours before completing it. Not to research, not to compare, just to wait. Studies on consumer behavior consistently show that the majority of unplanned purchases above that threshold fail a simple overnight test. You no longer want them by morning. The urgency was never real, it was a feeling. That single habit does something most financial advice misses entirely. It rewires your relationship with spending at a neurological level. It inserts a pause between impulse and action. Your prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for long-term planning, gets a window to override the part that simply wants the dopamine hit right now. That window is worth more than any investment tip you will ever receive. Here's the part of the story nobody stays for, because real financial discipline doesn't feel like momentum. It feels like watching everyone else move while you hold still. You see people your age posting about their portfolio wins, talking about their investment strategy, their gains, their next move. And the silence of a long-term plan compounding quietly, doing nothing dramatic, growing slowly, can feel completely indistinguishable from failure. It isn't. That silence is compound interest in motion, the quietest and most reliable force in all of personal finance. And many of the people making the most noise about their returns are a single market correction away from learning the hard way what happens when you confuse performance for progress. Now, the expense that costs even disciplined people 7 figures, it isn't luxury travel. It isn't the car payment. The real leak is lifestyle inflation, the slow, nearly invisible expansion of what you consider normal. Every time your income increases, your baseline spending adjusts to match it. A slightly better apartment, a nicer car, an extra subscription, a better dinner, a small upgrade here and there. This is not irresponsibility. This is hedonic adaptation, a documented psychological response to increased income. Your brain recalibrates its definition of comfortable, and the upgrade feels deserved, earned, entirely reasonable. The wealthy interrupt that cycle deliberately. The moment income rises, they redirect that increase into capital gains, dividend-generating assets, and strategic reinvestment before lifestyle creep can absorb it. They fund their brokerage account and tax-advantaged accounts first. Then they live on what remains. The middle class does the reverse, adjust lifestyle first, save whatever is left, which is rarely enough and often nothing at all. That single behavioral inversion compounded across 20 years is not a minor difference in outcomes. It is the difference between financial dependency and financial freedom. The numbers are not close. They are not even in the same conversation. Here is the discipline blueprint. 3 steps. Designed not to rely on willpower, because willpower is a depleting resource and financial decisions happen every day. Designed instead to automate the right behavior so your worst version of yourself cannot derail your long-term financial trajectory. Step 1. Automate every investment before the money reaches your checking account. Fund your 401k, your Roth IRA, your brokerage account on the day you're paid, not after expenses, not after discretionary spending. Before, capital your impulsive self never sees cannot be spent by your impulsive self. Step 2. Enforce the 24-hour rule on every purchase over $100. Non-negotiable. The decision is always tomorrow, not today. Most of the time, tomorrow you won't follow through. That's not weakness, that's the system working exactly as designed. Step 3. When your income increases, lock your lifestyle at its current level for 12 months. Every dollar of new income goes into investment vehicles for the first year, not forever. Just long enough for the compounding to become real enough to feel and real enough to protect. These 3 steps remove emotion from the financial equation. That's the entire point. Financial discipline isn't about moral strength or superior willpower. It's about building architecture where the right decision is the default and the wrong decision requires deliberate effort. Discipline is the tax you pay on freedom. Pay it now in small, boring, invisible installments. Or pay it later in regret that compounds with the same reliability as interest, just in the wrong direction. But here is what nobody tells you about this kind of discipline. The real reward isn't the portfolio balance. It's the person it builds. The capacity to endure discomfort without reacting, to build something invisible for years before it becomes undeniable. That capacity doesn't stay contained in your finances. It bleeds into everything. The next real test of this discipline isn't in a calm market. What happens to your investment strategy when the market drops 30% and every headline in the country says to sell? That's not a hypothetical. That's the next conversation.